everyone, and welcome back to the channel for some Wednesday morning Derby Day stuff. Derby Day chat stuff. Chat's probably a better word than stuff. I'm joined by Ethan Todd. We're going to talk about the Wear-Tyne Derby, or the Tyne Wear Derby. I don't know what the best way. I mean, it seems to be promoted everywhere as Tyne Wear, but I don't know. Is it?
I
Is it
thought it
Wear-Tyne,
was
Tyne Wear?
whichever one is at home comes first. So I think this
Well, I mean
weekend is it not where your time?
that would make sense. To be fair,
But that's how I got
yeah, I
that
don't
totally
know.
wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it because though? I suppose it's Tyne and Wear's the county, isn't it? So maybe they go Tyne Wear because you live in Tyne and Wear. Do you know what I mean?
Uh, I
I don't
wasn't
know.
very good at geography at school.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So yeah, we're going to talk about that today. So I think we're going to talk about our feelings ahead of the game. Obviously, it's difficult to know team news and stuff because we haven't seen press conferences. Newcastle actually have a game tonight, so they could get 7 injuries and completely change the conversation. So we don't know exactly, but we are going to talk about how we're going to approach the game, our feelings, what we think Newcastle will potentially do, whether or not the game means more to one fan base or the other. And I think I want to do a little bit of a combined 11 at the end because I think it's interesting to compare the two teams. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. I also have my dog with me, so if there's any barking, it will be little Maxwell who is disconcerted because he's locked in this section of the house with me. Right. Anyway, Ethan, what are your feelings ahead of this game? How. And I think I look at this, and I'll give you my perspective of when the fixture list come out all the way back in June. I looked at these derby games and was really kind of like, oh, we're going to be towards the bottom of the league. These games could be horrific if Newcastle are at the top end of the table. They come to the stadium like they pick up an easy win, and we're in the mire down the bottom of the league. And that was the pessimistic version of me. But it's totally different now because we look like we're going to be safe from relegation. We're actually ahead of Newcastle on the table. And it feels like for the first time we go into one of these derby games in the Premier League where it isn't like life or death. Normally we are like scrapping to stay up, or we've just sacked our manager and we're getting the new manager bounce and winning the game. This time it's much more calm. Probably the first time from a Sunderland perspective we're a bit calm and relaxed, I think, maybe heading into this one. But how are you feeling?
To be honest, I think like having that pessimistic outlook when the fixture list came out, I think that's totally granted. But considering the signings we've made and then the start of the season we've had, I think, yeah, I think you're definitely right. It's the most, I would say, on an even keel the two teams have been going into a derby that I can remember. And usually the derbies have come with, yeah, like fighting relegation or it's life or death regardless because purely of the bragging rights. But I think this is the most even the two teams have come into it, and the two teams having like the quality but is matched. Like I think there's players from our team that could get in theirs and vice versa. So I think personally for me, I think it's just excitement. Like my experience growing up watching the derbies is like it's obviously you understand how important it is, but it's just nice to be going into it thinking that well, one, we can give them a good game, but one, we've got the quality to match, especially like they've done brilliantly over the last 5 years or so, like getting into the Champions League, um, and pushing for the top four places. Like they've done brilliantly. And I think it's credit to us that we've come up within a couple of months and we're ready to match them. So personally, I'm really excited. Obviously, I might not be saying that come 2 o'clock on Sunday, but like I'm really excited going into it. I think I wouldn't necessarily say it's a free hit, but realistically, we've just came up and we've only been up a couple of months, and yeah, we've spent, but their squad is assembled for 2, 3 times the amount of money that ours is. So I don't really think there's too much to lose for us. So I think we can go in with a bit of excitement and a bit of well, we've got no fear, so let's just be excited and see what happens, kind of thing. I think.
What do you think that? I mean, obviously you're not a Newcastle fan, but what do you think their sort of feeling is? Because my outside reading, I mean, I know a lot of Newcastle fans. I'm from an area full of Newcastle fans. I live in Gateshead. My next door neighbour's got a Newcastle flag on his bloody front door. So,
Get it torn down.
yeah, there's plenty of Newcastle fans in my world, and I feel like I'm getting a couple of mixed messages. I'm getting from them that they are really surprised at how Sunderland are doing, and therefore this game is taken on much more difficulty compared to what they would expect. Newcastle being a top-end Premier League team, which is what they are, let's be frank, they would expect to go against newly promoted teams and pick up 6 points in a season. That's their view on things. They want 6 points of all three of them. But obviously we've done far better. And then I'm seeing a lot of downplaying. I've seen a lot of, well, it's not even our most important game this week. We've got a Champions League game, then we've got a cup quarter final after that, and the Sunderland game's kind of in the middle in it, and it's not that important. I feel like that is downplaying, maybe through, I don't know if fear is the right word, but trying to sort of be like, it's not that big of a deal for us, and it's a much bigger deal for you. It's your most important game. It's not our most important game because we've got bigger fish to fry. And I think that's a little bit disingenuous, because fundamentally derby games are important because they're derby games. You can't downplay the significance of a derby game, because that's why they're interesting, that's why they're on the TV, that's why it's going to be the most talked about game this weekend. It's because of the rivalry that exists between the two teams. So I don't buy that it's the least important game this week. I don't think that any Newcastle fan would take a defeat against Sunderland if they could win the other two games. I think they would take the win against Sunderland and lose the other two games if that was the option offered to them. But how do you think they're feeling ahead of the game, and what are your impressions? I mean, I don't know if you've got any friends or family who support Newcastle, but what is your impressions from the people you know who are on the dark side?
Yeah, well, my in-laws are all Newcastle fans, so I must be mad marrying into that. And then one of my best friends is a Newcastle fan as well. So, but I think, to be honest, I think you're right. Like, you can say obviously the Champions League is more important, and the derby is just another 3 points in the league. But everyone knows that's just simply not the case with the derby match. It's more important than 3 points, and I think the effect, both positive and negative, that can have, it could potentially spur on a massive momentum winning streak, or it can totally derail a season, just one game. But I think before obviously the summer and the start of the season we've had, I would presume, and rightly so, that Newcastle fans would think that the amount of money they've spent, the quality they've got, they've been in the Champions League, that they would just walk all over us like they did in the cup match the last time we played them. So I think it's probably a bit of fear, maybe it's a bit of ego, but I think we've proven that we're more than capable of matching them. So I think from their perspective, they might be going into the game, and I think it might be a bit of a a bit of a coping mechanism to kind of say, oh well, it's not even our most important game this week. We've got the Champions League. Like, you're just another game to us. But that's definitely not the case, I don't think. I think any Newcastle fan who's honest and isn't got a massive sort of ego towards Sunderland, I think they'll be quietly very nervous about Sunday.
Yeah. What about Michael Bowers? Do you need a new best friend?
Potentially, yeah.
Have you got a Sunderland best friend? And
Yes,
got
yeah. It's like from the area we're from, it's quite a mixture. Like, there's Arsenal, Spurs, Sunderland, Newcastle. So it's always interesting, yeah.
We've got Ken watching in from Cyprus, which is fun. And SAFC Jules I think we can absolutely win this. My anxiety is coming from the fact I couldn't bear it if it wasn't the Mags that broke our unbeaten home run. That's interesting, because yesterday I teach at the university in Sunderland, and the class is split. There's Sunderland fans, and then there's Newcastle fans, and then there's fans of other clubs. And the Newcastle fans were talking about this, is it worse for you that if we did win, you would lose your unbeaten home record? And I was like, I don't think I've ever thought about the unbeaten home record. The unbeaten home record is something I think about after we've played a home game. So, like, we beat Bournemouth, I'm like, get in, we beat Bournemouth. And then I get home, and then I think about it, I'm like, oh, get in, we're still beaten at home. It's not something that I'm, like, mega protective over. I think if we were on game 19 of the season, we're playing Chelsea, and we've not lost all season at home, I think I probably am a bit precious about that. It's like, oh, how amazing would that be? But, yeah, I don't know. I don't think...
No, to be honest, I'm the same. That's literally never crossed my mind going into Sunday until you've just mentioned it, the fact that we're still unbeaten at home. I think because of how crazy this season is, I think I've actually kind of forgot that we're still unbeaten at home. But that's a total afterthought when it comes to Sunday. Sunday's just purely the result. It would obviously be gutting to lose the unbeaten home record to them, but it is still kind of early stages of the season. But I think the result is just totally overrides that.
Yeah, I would agree. How do you think we'll approach the game? I mean, 4-3-3? Is that the way to go? Would you go the same as Bournemouth? Obviously, we also had the issue with Xhaka and Siddiqui, and they've ridden through that suspension storm. I mean, I don't know if you watched the game on Saturday, but every time the ball went near Xhaka or Siddiqui, I'm wincing and and I think Siddiqui did have one tackle he put in that he got done for. I was like, but yeah, I was panicking a little bit about that. I'm not gonna lie, because I felt like if we'd lost Xhaka, in particular Xhaka, but if we lost both, I was like, well, there's no way we're going to win this game of football. I know that's ridiculous because we would have other players, but it just felt that important to me that we, got through that with both of those players into this derby game. But what do you think our approach will be? Do you think we'll see a similar to Bournemouth, or do you think we'll maybe see similar to? And I can't imagine. Would you respect Newcastle so much you would put 5 at the back? I don't know. Would you? I would guess not. But how do you think the manager will look at this game?
I think, like we've come to know with Le Bris, he's a very pragmatic manager. And he's so meticulous that I think is in the staff as well. I think the whole process this week, they'll have planned to the nth degree for what's going to happen on Sunday. But I think especially the last cup game, I know it's obviously totally different circumstances, different manager, different squad. But we afforded them far too much respect, and then we just got killed by their quality. And then now, obviously, since then, we've added so much more quality to our squad that we can give them a good game. But I think approach-wise, I don't see him going 5 at the back, because that's more so being away from home, and then when it was at home, I think it's proven to be not necessarily the best strategy in terms of controlling the game and sort of nullified our attacking output a little bit. Particularly thinking like the Everton first half, we just weren't at our best. So I think the way Newcastle usually play some form of a 4-3-3 as well. And I think one of the games recently where we had 5 at the back, we just had, I think it was the Fulham game, we just seemed to have no control in the centre of the park. I know Hume falls into midfield, but he's not a natural centre midfielder. And we just had no control in the centre. And I think if you give Bruno and Tonali too much time in there, I think that's going to play right into their hands. And obviously Walter Mander's a really, really good striker, really good technically and massive physical presence, but I don't think 3 centre-halves need to be occupying him. I would back Ballard, if it's going to be Ballard and Aldre, I would back them to keep him under wraps a little bit. So I'd hope to see a 4-3-3. I'd hope to see us try and impose ourselves on the game, because we've got the quality to do that, and we've proven we can hang with the big teams like the likes of Forest, etc. So I really would hope it would be a 4-3-3. Go after them a little bit, and the power of that home atmosphere this season, but especially on Derby Day, I think it could obviously be like that 12th man. So I think go 4-3-3. Obviously, don't go hell for leather, but try and impose ourselves, try and play our football, and they're not like a Man City. They've got weaknesses like we do. They've got areas where we can hurt them. So I think we've got to not go too heavy metal football kind of style and let the atmosphere take over. But I really would be reticent to see 5 at the back. I think we're at home. We've got the momentum. We're playing well. So go and impose ourselves is what I would hope to see.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The Newcastle approach to things, and obviously it's difficult because they're playing tonight, and as I said, they might get injuries. So there'll be no touching wood there from me. Maybe they will. But I don't know what to think of Newcastle, because I've watched them, when they've been on the TV this season, particularly away from home, and I saw them against West Ham away, and they were absolutely hopeless. I saw them at Brentford away, they were hopeless, and then they've been hopeless away all season, to be fair. But they got that random 4-1 win at Everton, which I think was their last Premier League away game, which put a bit of anxiety into me. I mean, part of me thought, well, at least they've got that away thing off their back, so, they're not due an away win. But another part of me thought, oh, they've just, finally figured out how to play away from home. But their away record has been pretty bad. I think they've got 1 win since April away from home in the Premier League. But is it different because it's a local game, and the pattern's different because, they'll probably sleep in their own beds the night before? It might, in terms of the timeline for Newcastle, feel more like a home game, just because they'll treat it, as I imagine, it'll be treated like a home game in terms of their scheduling. Do you think that makes a difference? Do you think they're poor away form, or do you think a derby game it doesn't matter what away form's like, and it is what it is. It's an individual game, and it's almost like an away cup tie. It's a dog eat dog world, and whoever wins wins. Do you think that is important? I mean, we've got a comment here: form book out the window for local derbies. Is that true? Do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think form. I mean, it's important on the build up and how you treat going into the game, but as soon as the whistle goes in a derby, I don't think you can think, oh, their away form's been poor or we're unbeaten at home. It's just, I think derbies is just decided by moments and who turns up on the day and who takes the chances when they get them. But I think in terms of their form, like I've watched Newcastle quite a bit this season. It's just, I think if it's going to be one word to describe them, it's inconsistency. Like sometimes they play really good football and have really good moments, and obviously they've got a lot of technical quality. And when their team's fully fit, like I know they've had injury problems at fullback, and when they're fully fit, they're a really good team on paper, but they just seem to give away strange goals. Like the Spurs game recently, the goal that Romero scored to equalise it was just bizarre. So I think defensively is where we can really hurt them. But I think in terms of like the approach, I think because the St. James's atmosphere is obviously similar to ours, like tens of thousands of absolutely diehard fans, and their home atmosphere is just on a level with us, like two of the best home atmospheres in the country, especially this season. But away from home, I think they definitely seem to miss that atmosphere. So I think we've got to take that home advantage, because if it was at St. James's this weekend, they would be the same as their fans would be the same as we're going to approach it. Like the atmosphere is just going to be crazy. So we've got to take, especially with their away form going into it, we've got to take that as a positive on our side. So I think we've got to make the home atmosphere count, and I'm sure we will, because it'll just be bedlam.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be very interesting, because I think a lot of the players we've brought in haven't played in a derby before, and actually a lot of the Newcastle players, because they don't have a massive turnover of their squad, a lot of them did play in the previous one in the FA Cup. Now I think as well that FA Cup one could lead Newcastle down a different, psychologically they'll probably think of it a little bit differently, because the game on this weekend is going to be far different to that. Sunderland are a far better team. I think the feeling around Sunderland ahead of that FA Cup derby game was not good. Michael Beale and everything else that went with that, the Black Cats bar situation that went on at the time. There was a lot of negativity around Sunderland going into that game, and it was the worst, in my opinion, the worst game we could have gotten, that FA Cup third round draw. I think that it's going to be very different this time. I think the hostility is going to be far more. We obviously have as well all the players around all the fans will be around the side of the pitch. We won't have that big end at the North Stand full of Newcastle fans. I think it's going to be a very different game. Newcastle are going to be walking into a very different game this time. And while I don't always buy into narratives of atmospheres, changing games, and I think football as a professionals and can play, and I mean this Newcastle squad's full of international players. Don't think they're going to be intimidated by a really raucous atmosphere, but I do think it can give us as a team an extra sort of 2, 3, 4%, and I think the supporters have a big job to play, where if we do go down in this game, we are losing 1-0, we are losing 2-0 like we were against Bournemouth. I think the Sunderland fans will do this, but I think it's vital that we as a fan base keep behind this team. And I also hope that if the result doesn't go our way, looking ahead beyond this, that we don't let it derail our season, because we're having a good season irrespective, and we can't let this result, whatever it is, positive or negative, affect what we're doing on the pitch right now. So I mean, I've kind of thrown a few random things at you, but what do you make of A, the atmosphere conversation, and B, the reaction to the result from the Sunderland side? How important is it that we keep ourselves grounded no matter what the result is?
Well, I think the atmosphere, like they're experienced international players. Like obviously Tonali's probably played in multiple Milan derbies. Just the first one I can think off the top of my head. And like you say, a few of them played in the cup match. So I don't think the Newcastle players will be intimidated by the atmosphere, because they play in a similar atmosphere every week. Like their home support's fantastic, like ours is, in fairness to them. But I think like specifically over the last 6 months, 9 months, we've seen how important our our home atmosphere when everyone's together as one can give them that extra couple percent, and sometimes that's what it takes to create a moment that can define the game. So I think our atmosphere. I don't expect Newcastle to be intimidated, but like we've seen in the Coventry games, the games at home this season, like that atmosphere does play a part. But then I think in the grand scheme of the season, I think this game is probably more important to us than it is to them. They've still got the Champions League and stuff. It won't be treated like another game for them, but this is the biggest game of our season. But it potentially might not be the biggest game of their season, say if they progress into the latter stages of the Champions League. So I think our season could potentially be defined by this match more than theirs will be. But who's to say if we get a result on Sunday and it derails them for a few weeks, then it might be the most important as well. But I think the reaction from our fans on Sunday has just got as amazing as our fans are. I think that can give us a few extra percent, and then who knows what impact that can make in those defining moments.
Yeah, we've got a couple of comments here as well. It's about the balance of the side. This is Michael Power. It's about the balance of the side, isn't it? So pleased Xhaka and Siddiqui avoided a booking last weekend. Hopefully we have a point to prove after the shambles of the cup game last year. And when he said last year, I was like, no, that wasn't last year. But actually it was. It was January. 2 years ago nearly in terms of months. But actually last year in terms of years. My biggest worry is we keep 11 on the pitch. I can see 1 or 2 of the players losing it. We need to keep our heads. And I think that's an interesting point, because I think derby games often see players picking up red cards and stuff. I think for me, I just really want us to maintain 11 players on the pitch for the majority of the game. Obviously, if somebody gets sent off in the 85th minute, it's not as big of a crisis as somebody getting sent off in the first 15. I remember Cheick picking up a really silly red card early at the Stadium of Light once. I think Newcastle were winning 1-0. We ended up drawing 1-1. And I remember Sessegnon getting a red card just after half-time for a sort of a slap on Cheick, I think it was, interestingly. And we ended up drawing that game 1-1 with a late goal. So it is very important that people keep their heads. It's important that the referee's strong as well and referees the game. Not he needs to referee the occasion more than he does try and referee it like a Premier League game. Because it is different. They're totally different spectacles, and you've got to let a little bit more go in terms of the tenacity of the game. But I do think it's important because we have players like, and I'm looking at Trey Hume. He feels like one who could make a silly, over the top tackle to get the fans going. We've seen it before from him. He's a player that I'm looking at. I don't even know if he plays. I mean, we can talk about our start 11. I don't actually know if he'll start this game, but I look at him. I don't worry about a player like Xhaka, touch wood, because I haven't seen anything from him this season to suggest that he's chaotic and he would put. I mean, I've barely seen him put in slide tackles. It's just not really his game. I think he's a different player to what he was when he was at Arsenal. And so I don't really worry about any other player. Trey Hume's probably the only player we have that I think could be a little bit overzealous in the challenge. But yeah, keeping the 11 players on the pitch, it is vital. And I hope that it's 11v11 for the whole game. That would be... Because then you've got excuses as well. If you win at 11v10, you've got that excuse ready made in there, don't you?
Yeah, I think Hume is obviously the one to watch. We know what his game is built on that, and it's fantastic when it works well. But sometimes he does give away needless fouls and he just said yellows. Well, I do think there's a conversation to be had. I'm not even sure. Like you said, I'm not even sure if he starts on Sunday really. But I think, like what you're saying about Xhaka before, I think that's one of the concerns I had about him coming in. I think I just harkened back to his time at Arsenal and about how sort of rash he was in the challenge and his sort of mindset and disciplinary issues that he had at Arsenal. I was kind of worrying how those going to come back up to the surface back in the Premier League at Sunderland. But like, I know he's obviously had the 4 yellows, but I've never really seen him put in like a really harsh tackle where you think, oh, like that could have been a red. And I think his obviously discipline has been spot on. So there's no one I'm particularly worried about who would let the atmosphere get to their heads and put in a really ridiculous challenge, especially with VAR. Now they know they've got to take that extra step of caution. But the referee's just got to, if you're just brandishing yellow cards for everything, it's just going to tarnish the game and spoil the occasion a little bit. So the referee's got to play his part in allowing it to be a derby, not just like you say as a regular Premier League match. But the thing is as well though, like they've got players like Bruno, Joe Linton, the likes of those who are susceptible to rash challenges and those off the ball instances and stuff. So, to be honest, especially with VAR and the occasion, I would be surprised if it's 11 versus 11 come the end of the match. But I really hope that, and I expect us to, because of the old heads we've got in that squad. But I would hope that they can keep the discipline whilst obviously enjoying the type of match that it is. But giving away stupid yellows. Giving away stupid yellows.
But enjoy it by being disciplined.
Giving away stupid yellows, it's just going to come back to bite us. So, yeah.
Last thing I want to talk about really in terms of the game itself. Do you think, we talked about the game's importance and, probably is Sunderland's most important game of the season. And it possibly isn't Newcastle's. But do you think the game means more to either fan base, or do you think it means the same? Like, do you think that the rivalry is more one way, or do you think that generally both sets of fans have? I don't hate such a strong word. I mean, a lot of my family and friends are Newcastle fans. I don't hate Newcastle, and I don't. I despise the people that own them, and I despise the way that they've just accepted that. But other than that, I don't hate them per se, but the game means a lot, and I'm nervous about it, and I'm worried about it, and I think about it when I go to sleep. Do you think though that the game means more to one fan base or the other? Do you think it's equal dislike?
To be honest, I think it's equal. Like, for example, the first thing that pops in my head is say Sunderland Borough. I know it's classified as a derby purely on region, but as we've seen over the years, that game clearly means more to Middlesbrough fans than it does to Sunderland fans. And I think even if, like for the cup game, for instance, like where Newcastle were challenging for the Champions League and we were mid-table championship, it still means the same to both sets of fans, regardless of where they're at in the league. But I think going into it, how we're so even at the top, like at the top level, like both top table Premier League teams, I think it definitely is even. I think it means the same to each fan base. But yeah, hate is a strong word, but I think if there's something 5% less than hate that you could describe the rivalry as, I think that's that. But I think it's the same for both sets of fans. Like, there's so much cultural impact and how important it is to the cities, not just the clubs, but the cities around it as well. And the bragging rights and the memories along the way and stuff. So I think it's definitely even. But I think the Newcastle fans will be not necessarily as optimistic as they might have been in the summer going into the game.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Let's finish off with a bit of a combined 11. I saw that the Raw podcast did this, and my good friend Alt Endon just picked a full Sunderland team. But let's try and do this as neutral as we possibly can. And I've kind of got either rows, but also like in the midfield three, I don't think it's fair to compare, to put, say, Bruno against Xhaka. I think I'm going to look at that as, say, right, you pick from the 6 regular central midfielders, pick the 3 best ones. But goalkeeper, I feel like Robin Roofs this season anyway, is the clear number 1 out of Nick Pope. And is there any debate?
Yeah, I agree. I think, to be honest, I think Pope is a brilliant shot stopper, but he's just got a strange mistake in him, and obviously he's really poor with his feet for a Premier League level goalkeeper. But then sometimes he's got that frame and he makes some exceptional saves, but then sometimes he just makes some strange mistakes. And then Ramsdale, I think sometimes he makes some wonderful saves as well, and then sometimes he just looks really like kind of soft in goal. And then obviously he's quite comfortable with his feet, but I think Roofs is like the full package, so good with the ball at his feet, like his shot stopping, his cross clearance, just fantastic. Like, I think Roofs, hopefully it's with us, but I honestly see Roofs playing for a top 5 European club like one day, and I couldn't say the same about Ramsdale or Pope. So I think Roofs definitely.
If we look at the back 4, left back, I really rate Lewis Hall, but Lewis Hall or Ronaldo, I think that's a really interesting battle there. And I think if you were going to have one to own, I think you would obviously pick Lewis Hall because of the age and the progress he'll have. this season, because Lewis Hall's been injured, I think if you were doing it on form, you would probably have Ronaldo in there. But I think if I'm being brutally honest, I probably would side with Lewis Hall if I was building the 11.
Yeah, I think
Just
this.
about, but
I think this one's really close. Like they're quite similar profiles as well. To be fair, I know Ronaldo's on the older side, but yeah, I think if you were going to ask me which one I'd rather have in the team, like through gritted teeth, it would be Hall. Like when he came, I know the thing is with Hall, like I think if he hadn't had the injury problems he's had in his career, I don't even like. I think he'd obviously be starting every game for England, and probably maybe he's even moving on from Newcastle to like the likes of a Man City potentially. I think he's got so much talent. Like I watched him come on against Spurs, and he just looks so comfortable. Like he was just in second gear, and he's just quality. But that's not to say Ronaldo's not fantastic. Like he's been such an important signing for us, and he's obviously got them years of experience on him. But I think Hall just edges it, I would say.
yeah, and it's interesting because I think if I was picking a combined team to just play the Derby game at the weekend, I probably would rather have Ronaldo because of his school and
Yeah, Simeone school.
education.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think if I'm being brutally honest, I think I'll probably have Lewis Hall just about shading it. If we go with a right back, and this is a really difficult one, I've put Livramento and Mukiele. And I find it difficult to pick between the two of them. I think Mukiele's took to the Premier League amazingly well. He just looks one of the best players. I mean, I think statistically isn't he, for a defender, one of the best.
Yeah.
He was top for a while ago.
He was like statistically, I think he was second or third. I think it was who scored. I think he was second or third best, like in the league total a few weeks ago.
So again, I think if we were having a debate of current form this season, then you would probably have Mukiele. Livramento, though, is a very, very good player, and I think Newcastle's fullbacks, you could argue, are their strongest part of the team. I find it really hard to pick between these two, and I think the conversation is if we're picking from this season, I think Mukiele wins, but I think if you were building a team for the next 5 years, you would probably pick Livramento.
I think Livramento is probably slightly better, like from an attacking mindset. I think, like for instance, Livramento couldn't slot in at centre half, but Mukiele has proven that he's a very comfortable centre half. So I think if you're going for more of a defensive setup, I'd rather have Mukiele. But I think in possession and kind of progressing the player forward, I think Livramento. But they're two like quality players. But to be honest, this season, like Mukiele has been so good, and he's obviously proven himself to do well for us, like in possession and going forward as well. So, and I think like he's so much more robust than Livramento. Like I would have Mukiele personally, but that's not to say Livramento's, when he's fit, is not one of the best right backs in the league, because he's a brilliant player.
Okay, so let's do that. So we've got Robin Roofs, Lewis Hall at left back, then we've got Mukiele at right back. I'm happy with that. 2 centre backs. You've obviously got multiple choices to pick in here, but I would say Chiao is having a really good season. I think if you're going to go on form, you would probably have him in there. And then I think there's the conversation of Ballard or Alderete to partner him. I don't think any of the other, Botman, I don't think he's having a great season. Shaw hasn't been having a great season. So I definitely think you would have Chiao with Ballard or Alderete. So you're just choosing between which one of them Sunderland centre backs. I'd probably go with Ballard, even though I love Alderete.
I think I'd go Alderete, to be honest. I think if you're thinking of it as like a team, like Alderete, obviously a left footer on the left side, is obviously a bit more natural. But I think like Ballard's been so good, and like the progression he's made has just been fantastic. But I think like Alderete was in the La Liga team of the season last year. Like he's been one of the best centre halves in Europe. And like the Liverpool game, he was just how cool he is in possession and playing out, but also like how good he is defensively. He's so aggressive as well, but in a controlled manner. Like I think he's just the all-round package for like the modern day centre half. So I'd have Thiaw definitely, because equally he's been probably easy their signing of the summer. I know Walter has done well, but Thiaw has been one of the best centre halves in the league as well. So I would have Thiaw and Alderete, and I think that's one of the best centre half partnerships you could get in the Premier League nowadays, I think.
Okay, we've got a good back five there then. Right, midfield 3. This is interesting because my take on it is Xhaka goes in there, but then I'd have to put Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali in there as well. As much as obviously I love Noah Siddiqui and Enzo Lefebvre, the reality is Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes are proven in the Premier League, proven internationally, are experienced seasoned players. And I think if you had a midfield three of Xhaka, Bruno, and Tonali, it'd be pretty scary to come up against the tenacity of that three. So that's what I'm picking. I know some Sunderland fans might disagree with that, but I think if we're being totally honest in trying to be as neutral as we possibly can, that would be the three, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I agree. Like Bruno and Tonali, I think it's just the way Newcastle has been. They've been inconsistent this season, but when they're on the game, like Bruno and Tonali, they've got so much quality, and they've got that bit about them to match it as well. And then Slot and Xhaka in there is just like that midfield three would just be fantastic to have. But like, there's an argument potentially Siddiqui and Tonali, but I think Tonali is definitely a few levels above Siddiqui. Not that he can't get to his level at some point in his career. Like Tonali's played at a higher level for a good couple of seasons more than him. But yeah, I think that midfield three picks itself really.
I would agree. The front three is really, really difficult because I think both teams have got. It's probably the weakest area of the team for both
definitely.
teams. I think you could definitely make an argument that Sunderland have got the better goalkeeper in defence. I think you could make the argument Newcastle's got the better central midfield in there. The front line, I think both teams probably need upgrades there. On the right side, Newcastle are playing with Jacob Murphy, which fair play to him. He's had a really good run playing in that position. He's done really well for Newcastle. We're currently playing Bertrand Traore there, who he's okay. I think that's if he's functional, he does his job, but he's not particularly flash. I think if I was having to compare, unless you want to put somebody else on the right wing from the Sunderland side, if it's a choice between those two, you'd probably have to pick Murphy, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think that's I think the fact that you're choosing between Traore and Murphy, I think that shows where both teams need to strengthen. But in the same breath, though, they spent 40-50 million on Elanga.
Yeah.
And he was amazing at Forest. Like his pace and his drive, like the way he drove a defence is just like scary. But then it's just, for whatever reason, it's not happened from at Newcastle yet. So really, on paper, Elanga should be slotting in there. He's been a really productive winger in the Premier League at a good level for Forest for the last few seasons. So he should be slotting in there really on paper. But I think Traore, I think if you're describing someone as functional, that's kind of like, well, you're okay, but we really need to like upgrade on you. And I hope they do that in January. And he has improved, and sometimes it seems to click, and then sometimes it just looks totally out of place. And Murphy, I think he is limited, and he does make mistakes sometimes, but he's proven himself to be capable at this level. He's got a goal in him. He's provided Isak with a lot of important assists down the years. So yeah, I think you'd have to go Murphy, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. On the left side, Anthony Gordon's having a pretty meh spell at the moment. We've got Harvey Barnes, who seems to be in a bit of form. On the Sunderland side, we've got Romain Mundle, Talby, Adingra. But again, I think that Sunderland haven't established themselves on that left side this season. I think that we've got, we just haven't been able to find what's right there. I know Lefebvre's played out there, so maybe you could consider putting Lefebvre in ahead of Barnes. But I think, again, if you were being brutally honest, you would go with Harvey Barnes. He's the experienced player. He's played far more at the top level, and I think he's had a decent season so far. He's had a better season than what Sunderland have in terms of left wingers. So I would pick, through gritted teeth, Harvey Barnes.
Yeah, I think Gordon is probably a better player than Barnes. I think Gordon on his day can be a more dangerous player than Barnes, but it's how often Gordon has his day. Like, I think he's been like really impressive in the Champions League, but I think he was on a run of like 18 Premier League games without a goal or something, like following on from last season into this. So I think if I was going to choose between Gordon or Barnes this season, you'd be taking Barnes because he's been like in really good form. And he's kind of made that spot as Gordon needs to take that spot off him, and he's held that down for the last couple of seasons. But I think there's like Talby and Lefebvre on our side. But I think Lefebvre's and he's proven like at against Bournemouth that he needs to be playing in those central pockets rather than out wide. Like his best talents are wasted out wide. And all Le Bris trusts him because of how well he works, and his work rate defensively is fantastic. But yeah, I think you'd have to go Barnes because I'd want Lefebvre playing in midfield, but is he better than Bruno and Tonali? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think Carl here might think that you're a Newcastle fan. Question for the mag, but you're a Sunderland fan. We are doing a combined 11, but we're doing it from a Sunderland perspective, Carl. But yeah, we did actually touch on this subject at the start. If you want to scroll back, Carl, we did go through whether or not how important this game was for Newcastle in the context of the season.
I should have won with Sunderland.
Yeah, last position is Voltemade or Isidore or Brobby. I'm going to guess would be the two. And Vissa, obviously, but he's not played. I think this is a difficult one because I think Voltemade has done quite well at Newcastle. I think he seems to have adapted okay. I don't think he's pulling up any trees. He had a decent start, and I think he's maybe come off the boil a little bit. I quite like Isidore. I know he's in for a little bit of stick. There we are. Carl's apologised.
Always forgiven, Carl. Always forgiven.
He's not a mag. Anyway, yeah, the front line. Then Brobby, who he's been a menace when he's come on. I think again we look at this front three, and I think both clubs are unproven in this area. But I think because I've given Newcastle the benefit of the doubt on the left and the right, I think I probably will stick in. I'll stick in Big Brian Brobby. I think I'll give him the nod in this team. I think his physicality is good. I know Voltemade has a bit of physicality, but he's a bit more of a number 10 for me. I don't think he's actually a number 9.
Yeah, he's built like a number 9, but he plays like a number 10.
Yeah, so therefore for me, the way that we're setting up in this team, we need a focal point. So I'm going to go with Big Brian Brobby. That's my pick.
To be honest, I think there's arguments to be made for the three of them. Like Voltemade's I think he's adapted to the Premier League well, but I think especially with Isaac Laven in that whole saga, I think it's taken Newcastle time to adapt to playing with him as well. Like he's built like a number 9, but he's dropping deep, like once the ball at the feet. Like his link up for someone of his frame is like a really like rare profile. And he obviously knows where the net is, but I don't think he's exactly been prolific. I don't think any three of the strikers you could class as prolific. Like all three of them have probably missed chances and not created enough chances off their own back. But to be honest, I think I'd go with Isidore. Like I know he can be a bit profligate at times, but I just think like his pace and his movement, like it's just dangerous for any side. Like he's just someone who I would hate for us to face because he's just got one thought in his mind the whole time. And I think over the last year, his link-up player, as he's adapted to sort of the physical rigours of English football, I think his link-up player has definitely improved. But I just think he's just someone who you'd hate to face, and I know he can be a bit inconsistent with his finishing at times. But I just think he's a dangerous player, and I think he's got the scope to like keep improving. So if he like polishes his game a little bit more in terms of finishing and stuff, like obviously we saw at Liverpool, but it's a great defender from Chiesa. But I just think Isidore, like I just love the way he plays, and I just love how direct he is. Like I think that's just really dangerous. But there's an argument to be made for all three of them. But I think just the quality Isidore's got and the pace, I love watching him play. So I'd back him.
Fair enough. Well, I think by the scores, we've given 5 Sunderland players and 6 Newcastle ones. So
yeah, so it can't be accused of bias, to be fair.
Yeah, I think we've done a good job there of towing the line of.
I think there's a few like that you can debate, but I think going off that as well, I think it's clear that, like you said, defenses for both teams are pretty good when everyone's fit, and the central midfield is like fantastic options for both. It's just like the forward line, like both us and Newcastle definitely need to be, well, they probably more so need to improve the form. Like they've spent a lot of money on that forward line, and it's probably not producing as much as they'd want. But then I think we need to add 1 or 2 bodies across like the outside forward and then up front in January, 100%.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to buy a right winger, right-sided forward. I don't mind, but our options through the middle with Isidore and Brobby, like I think the two of them can probably combine for 15 goals this season.
Yeah.
So that's about what you need from your centre forward position. And I think on the left, I think Mundell and Talby in Adingra, we've got options there. Obviously, Adingra not going to the AFCON as well, which is massive for him because it gives him a chance to play. It'll be him and Mundell basically fighting out for the wing positions, and then we could maybe put Mayenda out there. It's a shame that Mayenda hasn't got in this conversation, but obviously,
I think it's strange how little he's played this season, how well he was last season. I think Le Bris obviously trusts him as well, but whether he just thinks it's the likes of Rig and Neil, he trusts them as players, and he likes the personality, but whether he just thinks they're not up to the technical level. And I think that's a fair argument if we had the difference in the Championship to the Premier League, but whether he falls into the Rig and Neil category. But it is a shame because I think Mayenda definitely deserves more minutes, and I hope he gets them during the AFCON period. And then if he's not at this level, then that's obviously fine. But I think he scored early on in the season. I definitely think he needs more minutes. But then Adingra as well, not going AFCON. I think if he can't try and solidify that left wing position as his own now, then I'm not sure if it's obviously don't want to write players off too early, but it's he's got his chance now. He isn't going AFCON, which everyone probably predicted he would have. He needs to make that left wing position his own and get back into starting 11 contention. So I really hope he does, because there's definitely something in him. And similar to Sadar as well, he's an exciting player to watch, and you want to have exciting players. That's what you pay your money for. So I just really hope he takes his chance, potentially on Sunday, but whether he trusts him defensively in such a big game, I don't know. I don't think he will even feature off the bench, unless we're chasing the game. But I just really hope he proves himself.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, there we go. Let's wrap this one up. Thanks, Ethan, for joining me. Thanks, everyone, for watching along on the live stream. And I've got a few other things coming up this week. So me and Alt Ended have got a preview. We've also got Newcastle propaganda, so we're going to have a look to see what they're saying ahead of the game. And then on Friday, I'm going to do potentially a live stream with Andrew Musgrove of the Evening Chronicle, who is, I think he's the Everything's Black and White podcast host. So me and him are going to sit down and chew the fat around the game, and I'll go on his podcast and he'll come on mine. So that's all coming up ahead of the big game, and hopefully next week there'll be loads of content, because I'll just be wanting to make it all the time because we win. But if not, there might just be one video next week through gritted teeth. No propaganda or anything, defending on the result. But anyway, thanks Ethan for watching. Thanks for Ethan for joining us, and thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you all soon.